Tomac's also at a position in his career where, he's in a different position as other people. Like one of them is he he doesn't, in my opinion, he doesn't need the money. I think he wants to go racing because he's still, well, obviously competitive, which is quite remarkable. One, for his age, and two, some of the injuries he's been through. Even I've questioned, can we see the old Eli? And then you go watch, some of the earlier rounds of pro motocross, and I'm going, yep, he's still got it. Like, I can't believe I even wrote him off a little bit or thought maybe he couldn't. So he's now in a position where he could walk away and be fine, and he would still be solidified as an absolute legend of the sport and will be in the Hall of Fame. But I don't think that's his operation. He strikes me as someone that if he's committed and he believes he can still be competitive and go for race wins, it seems like he genuinely loves racing. So if it is taking a bit of a haircut as far as the pay goes, I don't think that's his number one priority. I think he's probably more concerned about things like, can I adapt to a KTM at this point in my career when I've been so used to the Japanese bikes? KTM is definitely, we all know this, but the only one with the steel frame. It just works different. It's just different, especially to the Yamaha, which has got a lot of power and is pretty rigid, which I think suits Eli's style. The KTM's got a little more of a loose, the frames flex more. It's just different, from when you sit on a KTM, it feels different to a Japanese bike. So Eli's proven that he's been able to do it on a Honda, on a Kawi, on a Yamaha. So I'm not going to bet against him. That's for sure.
Do you think he'll... Go ahead, Johnny. Excuse me.
Sorry. Do you think that steel frame, guys, is going to mess up his beast mode antics of just being WFO everywhere because it's flexing more? Because you'd think somebody like, I guess if you're looking at stuff from like a data standpoint, the faster you go, usually the stiffer you need stuff, right? Just for stability wise. And you usually lengthen out the bike. But for a rider like Eli that is always just wide open, if that bike is flexing more, I don't know. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, that's kind of where I would definitely agree with what you're saying. But it's also been proven that, obviously it can win. Riders have won in it. I've seen Chase at times look like he's really attacking. And again, there might be a slight change. Eli might have to adapt a little bit, right? Whether it's suspension settings, clamps, like you said, the overall length of the bike. But the frame, there's not much you can do to change that. So I don't know if that's going to be that one little missing link that holds them back a little bit. But I guess it seems like we'll find out shortly.
Grant, excuse me, Grant, what do you think is going to be more difficult, adjusting to the frame or adjusting to the hydraulic clutch?
That's a good one. I mean, I know he's said before he's not a fan of the hydraulic clutch, but I mean, there's a part of me that goes, I get it. But that's one thing I do think KTM's always had, at least for a while, is a good clutch. Like, it's very, how do I word it? It's very user friendly and it's very consistent. And I think that's something Eli can get used to pretty quickly. I still think the frame is going to be the sort of question mark. Is he able to overcome or adapt? I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think that frame has its pros and then sometimes maybe its cons. The pros are like, really choppy, square edge, bumpy tracks, almost a little bit like the GP tracks in Europe. I think suit the KTMs. But with the way the tracks evolve here and the way Eli rides, it's going to take a little bit of time. And but again, I think he can. I mean, look at Chase. He left Honda and went to KTM. We were all curious, and even though they've been still chasing some setup and continuously working and evolving, he's proven that he can win on a KTM as well. So I think good riders are able to adapt. The difference is for Eli, he's later in his career, so he's very set in his ways. like most riders would be. So the big question mark is going to be, will he be able to figure it out, and how long is it going to take? He doesn't have
You bring up a really good point on how well Sexton was able to adapt going from HRC to KTM. And, besides kind of shaking down some of the stink bugs that Webb tried to fix, it was amazing. Once they got that dialed, I mean, it looked like he'd ridden that KTM his whole life. So I do agree with you. He made it doable for sure.
Grant and Coach, last follow-up question. Have we seen beast mode in motocross so far? This year.
Hold on. I'm drawing a blank. Which race did he? The moto that he won, was that Hangtown?
Yeah.
That was one. He rides well there, and I saw. Maybe it wasn't 100% beast mode, but it was definitely 95% beast mode. We've been talking, how good Jett is, but he beat him straight up. So.
But he started in front of him, though. He started in front of him.
But he was still lapping faster. He pulled a gap. He was going. Again, I've seen glimpses of it, and again, he got a better start. That's Jett's fault for being behind, right? At the end of the day, no one looks at who got the whole shot and who had the fastest lap time. They just look at the results. So we've seen glimpses of it, but even like on the weekend at Southwick, I thought maybe we would see that again, and it didn't quite seem to materialize.
Coach, your opinion.
I have to follow right up with what Grant said. Southwick to me was where the tipping scales went the other direction, because we just know how well Tomac rides at that. I mean, just watching him almost get his front wheel sawed off by Hunter, I don't know. I agree with Grant. It's like we've seen it, but I thought if we were really going to see it in two motos, regardless of starts, because Tomac's come from, some pretty big deficits, and he just rails that track like it's nobody's other. And to Grant's point, I mean, Jett just simply walked away consistently, both motos. I mean, I think you have to say that, if we did see, to Grant's point, if we have seen glimpses of it, it's not going to be enough to surpass Jett, unfortunately, moving forward. And if Jett's gotten his starts figured out, which it looked like he did after this weekend, I just remember when they were talking about Jett getting comfortable with the bike, and he says, we're finally at the point where I'm comfortable with the bike where I can actually start training on it instead of still working on setup. You're like, oh, shoot. If he was barely losing and he wasn't comfortable with the bike, now he's got the bike balanced, he's got his starts back. I think what we saw this weekend might be kind of a premonition of what we might see the rest of the summer. It's pretty hard to argue with it after, again, knowing how strong Tomac is at Southwick. It's next level for sure. It will be interesting to see what the next couple of weeks look like, if there's a momentum shift back the other direction. So, Johnny, go ahead, Grant, excuse me.
No, I was just going to add to your one point there, which was, for riders sometimes chasing a setup or getting comfortable. The other thing is that people don't talk a whole lot about is, like, if Jett's got to a point where he's comfortable, that means he's in the window of where he needs to be. So now, instead of throwing a bunch of different things at it to see what works, you get into that window, and then it's just small tweaks here and there. But what is, I believe, also very important for riders is consistency. So now that he's found a setup and he can train on it, even if the bike's not perfect, the one thing that helps your confidence and your inner ability is, let's just say, it deflects on certain braking bumps or things. You can move your body, you can soak it up, you can do different things. But what's most important is being able to ride on a bike that is the same week after week after week. And that's also going to bring, I think, a little more speed and consistency, which is kind of scary for the rest of the guys. Not to mention that, going back to Hangtown, yes, Eli won, but it was hot, and Jett's actually very mature for his age. He, I don't want to say gave up, but he figured, all right, they got me on this one. I'll save my energy, and I'll make sure I come out and win that second moto and hopefully get the overall. So, he hasn't been pushed, in my opinion, over his limit. He rides within his limit. You see sometimes, oh, they're hanging with him. He can't pull away. And then he just slowly starts marching away and again wins by a nice comfortable gap.
See, that's the point that I kind of go on with beast mode is when I look at the lap times, it's not that like all of a sudden you see Tomac go from a 205 to a 201. Yeah. It's more so that he goes from a 205 to a 205 after the track is still rough and rutted and it's 25 minutes in, where everyone else is at like a 208. He's still at a 205. That's beast mode, the definition from me. When I look at Jett goes 205, and then if somebody gets close to him, like you were saying, Grant, then he goes 203 all of a sudden. And then it's only for like a lap or two. Then he gets that gap again and then plays a little cat and mouse game all over again.
That to me is the biggest maturity that I've seen this year with Jett. He doesn't care to win by 35 seconds. Hey, Johnny, pull your microphone a little bit closer. Yeah, that's the thing that I noticed with Jett, to Grant's point. If he sees somebody coming, he just bumps it up a little bit, does a second, then hangs out there. Somebody bridges, he goes again, but he's not trying to win by 30 minutes. And I think it goes back to like what Tim Ferry said, Johnny, on the show. He's trying to manage a 10-month series. And Grant, I'm on public record of saying this. In your prime, I cannot imagine you're being told in November, hey, guess what? We're going to combine series. We're going to race from January to October. Along the line, you got to shake down a new bike. Thanks for showing up and racing Destinations, and we need you to be strong for 10 months. You're screwed 6 ways sideways. You know, with my young athletes that I have right now, if World Supercross does not go the distance, I'm training them for 10 months of racing. Yeah. Right. I've got young athletes that I can athletically develop to be ready to try to sustain 10 months of output. For you guys that excuse me, never having, you know, a back-to-back series with such few days off. Poof, I don't know how these guys can even continue to do it. We could joke a little bit about how they're doing it, and that's not what we need to talk about, but it is amazing the way that these guys are having to adapt and overcome. Grant, with all your experience and with the teams that you changed and stuff, in your opinion, what would you recommend to Tomac, knowing that he's going to go to a bike that's completely different, as you've already articulated, and you have such a short window of time before A1?
I you know, the one thing I would say, which, you know, again, he's done so much, he doesn't need to be told a whole lot. The biggest thing I would say is, you know, a lot of times riders, and I'm guilty myself, you switch teams and you go, I like this and I like that, and I've always wanted my setup like this. Be open-minded, because this is a pretty big change, and they might suggest things to try that in his head he's going to go, no, I don't like that, or, you know, I don't like a longer swing arm, or I don't like the forks pulled in tight. But when you're changing, you know, the chassis, the core, the base, and everything gets added onto it, just be open-minded. You know, I think he's going to have to take some advice from the team itself and try things that maybe he would already think, I'm not going to like this, but, you know, he might be shocked and go, well, hang on, all of a sudden I do like this, you know, it does work on this bike. So it's just going to be, you know, taking the blinders off, however you want to word it, but being open-minded to try things that maybe he's tried in the past, didn't like, could do full circle.
I think it'll be interesting if all of a sudden he just loves the hydraulic clutch and then just becomes whole shot Hansen overnight and is like, damn, why did I wait so long to go to hydraulic? This thing's awesome.
And it could happen, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, I like the hydraulic clutch. It makes it nice and easy, but then again, my style of riding was not like Eli's. He's very hard on the clutch, which actually makes me think you would think he would like the hydraulic clutch for how much he uses it and how much you have to get the free play out. But again, riders get set in their ways, and we don't like change sometimes, but, you know, sometimes those changes you're forced to do. And you, Rob, I think there's a good chance he goes, well, you know what, I was wrong, I like this.
Yeah,
usually changes ends up being good in some form of another, maybe not initially, but in the long run.